In the heart of northern England, there's a house no one dares to live in. A place that was meant to bring profit, but instead brought nightmares. For decades, locals whispered about flickering lights, distant screams, and shadows moving where no one should be. Tonight, we uncover the true story of the Hollow Manor, a place where silence itself became the loudest scream. Stay until the end, because what investigators found inside was never meant to be seen by human eyes. In the autumn of 1974, a small real estate company based in northern England purchased an aging Victorian mansion on the outskirts of a quiet rural town called Ravenscroft. The house stood alone at the end of a narrow tree-lined road that most locals avoided after dark. The property, known as the Hollow Manor, had been abandoned for almost 15 years. Its windows were sealed with warped wooden boards, and the once grand garden had grown wild, the trees twisting like claws around the crumbling walls. Locals spoke in whispers about the place. Some said the last family to live there disappeared overnight, leaving their belongings behind. Others claimed to have seen candlelight flickering through the upper windows long after midnight, though the electricity had been cut off for years. When the company's senior surveyor, Thomas Elridge, first entered the house, he described the silence as unnatural, too aware. In his report, he wrote that the temperature dropped the moment he stepped through the front door. His torchlight revealed dust thick as fog and deep scratches along the wooden panels of the hallway. Claw marks, though no animal had been inside for years. At the time, no one thought much of it. It was just another restoration project, another forgotten property to be flipped for profit. But what began as a simple business venture would soon become one of the most disturbing, unsolved mysteries in modern British history. The renovation team arrived on October 12, 1974. 4 men, 1 woman, and a truck full of tools and materials. Their plan was to stay inside the manor for 2 weeks to complete the first inspection and make the place ready for electrical work. According to their notes, the first day was uneventful. Just dust, cold air, and the faint smell of mold. But the first night was different. Around midnight, one of the workers, Alan Price, reported hearing footsteps upstairs. Heavy, deliberate, pacing from one room to another. Thinking it was a prank, he went to check, but the upper floor was empty. The next morning, they found all the doors on the second floor wide open, though they had been locked the night before. The group brushed it off as wind pressure or structural movement, but the fear had already taken root. That night, no one slept. By the third day, the crew decided to set up a tape recorder in the main hallway. They wanted to capture the strange sounds that echoed through the house at night. Footsteps, dragging noises, and sometimes a faint whisper. When they played the tape the next morning, the air went cold. At first it was silence. Then came a woman's voice, faint but unmistakable, saying something in Old English. "Get them out." No one in the group could explain it. The house was locked from the inside, and no one had entered during the night. Alan smashed the recorder in panic, shouting that the voice came from the same room he'd heard the footsteps before. Later that day, the company's manager ordered them to continue work as scheduled. He refused to believe the story. That night, 2 workers quit and left Ravenscroft before dawn. Before leaving, one of the departing workers, Sarah Linton, took a single photograph of the main hallway using her Polaroid camera. To prove the house wasn't haunted, she later said. But when the film developed, the image showed something none of them could explain. A figure stood halfway down the corridor, blurred, pale, and facing the camera. Its outline was human, but the head was tilted unnaturally to one side, as if broken. Behind it, a shadow stretched across the wall in a shape that didn't match the figure's posture. The negative was later analyzed by a photography lab in Manchester. Their report concluded, no signs of tampering or double exposure. That photograph remains one of the last pieces of evidence taken inside Hollow Manor before it was sealed again. After the team abandoned the project, Hollow Manor remained untouched for years. The company quietly removed its listing from all property records, and the local council placed a barrier around the estate. The official reason was structural instability, but residents of Ravenscroft knew better. They said the house had claimed its own, that it didn't want to be disturbed again. In 1978, a group of university students broke into the manor as part of a paranormal study. Only 3 of the 5 returned the next morning, pale and trembling. None of them ever spoke publicly about what they saw. By 1980, the building was declared unsafe and sealed permanently. But even then, locals reported lights in the windows and faint music playing from somewhere deep inside. 2 weeks into the renovation, the construction crew began reporting strange sounds from the upper floor. The workers claimed they heard muffled conversations at night, voices that didn't belong to anyone in the crew. One of the electricians, James Carter, decided to record the sounds with a reel-to-reel tape recorder. When the tape was played back the next morning, everyone in the office froze. The recording captured a woman's voice whispering, "Why did you wake me?" followed by the sound of a door slamming, even though no door had moved that night. After that, 3 workers quit the job immediately, refusing to return. The remaining few stayed, but their expressions grew hollow, their eyes dark, as if the house was slowly draining them. During one inspection, a worker discovered a sealed door behind layers of wallpaper on the 2nd floor. When it was finally opened, they found a small square room with mirrors covering every wall, ceiling, and even the floor. The air was icy cold despite no windows or ventilation. In the center of the room stood a single wooden chair, facing one of the mirrors. When the foreman entered to take photographs, he saw his reflection move, a second slower than him. The delay was so faint that others didn't notice, but he swore the reflection smiled when he didn't. That evening, the foreman locked himself in his van and refused to sleep inside the house again. Records from the 1930s revealed that the house once belonged to the Whitmore family, a wealthy couple and their 2 daughters. In 1938, all 4 vanished without a trace. Police found the dining table set for dinner, candles still burning, but no sign of struggle or escape. It was as if the family had simply ceased to exist. The case was closed as unexplained disappearance. After learning this, the company tried to sell the property quickly, but every interested buyer withdrew after visiting. One man reportedly fainted upon entering the mirror room and was later hospitalized for what doctors called. In 1975, a well-known paranormal researcher named Dr. Evelyn Marks arrived in Ravenscroft to study the Hollow Manor. She spent 3 nights inside with her equipment, cameras, thermal scanners, and EVP recorders. On the 2nd night, her camera captured a faint silhouette moving across the hallway, although the house was locked from the inside. Her final recording ended with her whispering, "There's something in the walls. It's watching me." The next morning, she was gone. Her car remained parked outside, her notes scattered on the floor near the mirror room. She was never found. After Dr. Marks' disappearance, the Hollow Manor was sealed by local authorities. No one entered again for decades. Over the years, residents nearby reported lights flickering inside the empty house at night and the faint sound of a woman humming an old lullaby. By the late 1990s, the house had become part of local legend, a warning told to children not to wander near the woods. Some say the Whitmore family never left. Others believe the house itself is alive, feeding on anyone who dares disturb its silence. In 1999, a young investigative journalist named Daniel Cooper decided to reopen the case of Hollow Manor for a documentary series on haunted sites across Britain. Daniel was a skeptic, a man who believed every ghost story had a rational explanation. He obtained special permission from the council to enter the property, which had been sealed for over 20 years. When he first stepped inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and mold, yet he described feeling as if someone had been there just moments before. His camera recorded him entering each room methodically, describing the structure in decay. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., during the first night, his recorder captured a sound unlike anything he expected, the faint laughter of a child, echoing through the hallways. Daniel dismissed it at first, thinking it was a trick of the wind, but when he played it back later, he heard his own voice whispering, "Daniel," even though he never said it. On his second night, Daniel decided to sleep inside the house to debunk the myths. He set up motion sensors in the hallways and cameras at each entrance. At 2:47 a.m., one of the sensors detected movement from the upper floor, the same area where the mirror room was located. The footage showed faint footsteps moving across the dust-covered floorboards, leaving visible prints even though no one was there. The prints were small, like those of a child. Daniel climbed the stairs cautiously, whispering to his recorder, "If someone's here, I mean no harm." When he reached the top, all sensors went off at once. The cameras glitched for 3 seconds, and in that brief static, a reflection of a little girl could be seen standing behind him in the mirror, smiling. While exploring the study room, Daniel discovered something behind a loose brick in the fireplace, an old folded letter sealed in wax. The handwriting was elegant, signed by Margaret Whitmore, the mother from the missing family. The letter read, "He said the house needed us, that it feeds when we are afraid. The walls whisper his name at night. I can hear the girls calling from the mirrors. If we don't leave soon, we will become part of it." Daniel read the letter aloud on camera, visibly shaken. The next moment, the light flickered and a cold breeze rushed through. When Daniel's team reviewed the footage days later, they discovered that large portions of the tapes were corrupted, specifically the parts filmed near the mirror room. What remained was chilling, distorted audio of a woman crying, and faint laughter overlapping with Daniel's voice saying, "I can't see myself anymore." The final frame of the last tape showed Daniel's camera lying on the floor, tilted toward the mirror. In its reflection, a shadow stood exactly where he should have been. Daniel Cooper was never seen again. His car, equipment, and belongings remained inside. The local police sealed the house once more, permanently. Today, the Hollow Manor remains abandoned, fenced off by rusted iron gates and warning signs. Local residents claim that government agents occasionally visit the site at night, carrying strange equipment and staying until dawn. Some say they are studying radiation. Others believe they're hiding something much darker. Every few years, thrill seekers break in to film ghost videos, but none stay long. Their cameras always malfunction inside, and many report hearing their own voices whisper back to them. The manor stands silent still, its windows like eyes, watching, waiting for the next soul curious enough to listen. In 2003, 28 years after the disappearance of Dr. Evelyn Marks, and 4 years after Daniel Cooper vanished, a confidential government document surfaced on an online forum. It was titled Operation Hollow. The file, allegedly leaked from the Ministry of Defense, referenced unexplained acoustic phenomena and non-human cognitive projections observed at the Ravenscroft site. According to the document, scientists from a classified research division entered the manor in 1981 under strict orders to contain the anomaly. The report mentioned high electromagnetic readings, disembodied whispers, and temperature fluctuations beyond measurable limits. But the final page ended abruptly with the phrase, "Containment failed. Subject has adapted." The post was deleted within 24 hours. The user who uploaded it was never identified. In 2008, a local historian named Clara Hughes began researching the manor's origins for a book on Victorian architecture. Her findings went far beyond old blueprints. Deep in the archives, she uncovered letters exchanged between the original architect, Sir Jonathan Blythe, and a secretive patron whose name was redacted. One letter, dated 1871, sent chills through her spine. It read, "The design must be precise. The mirrors are not for beauty but for containment. Each wall must face the next, creating a reflection without end, a prison of sight for that which must never see the dark again." Clara published excerpts of the letters online. Within a week, her website was hacked and deleted. She reported being followed by a man in a black coat for several nights. One morning, she was gone. Her car found near Ravenscroft, engine still running. In 2016, a group of urban explorers sent a drone over the Hollow Manor, hoping to capture footage for their YouTube channel. The video began normally: broken roof tiles, shattered windows, overgrown ivy swallowing the walls. But as the drone hovered above the center of the roof, the footage distorted violently. A pale light pulsed from the attic window, followed by what looked like a face pressing against the glass from the... In 2022, a former police officer named Harold Finch, who had worked on the original Whitmore case in the 1970s, returned to Ravenscroft after decades of silence. Haunted by guilt, he wanted closure. He broke through the rusted gates and entered the manor one final time. His body was never recovered, but his audio recorder was. The tape contained 40 minutes of silence, broken only once. At 3:14 a.m., Harold's trembling voice whispered, "It's still here, but it knows I'm not afraid anymore." Then came a sound, deep, guttural, like breathing from inside the walls. The tape ended there. Today, the Hollow Manor still stands at the edge of Ravenscroft, untouched, rotting, patient. No one dares to approach it, though locals say sometimes, on windless nights, the lights inside flicker back on. The government denies all knowledge. The land records list the property as condemned, but travelers passing through the area swear they've seen a figure in the upstairs window, a woman's silhouette, holding the hand of a small child, watching the road in silence. They say the Hollow Manor doesn't trap people anymore. It waits, listening, for those who will come willingly. And every few decades, someone always does. Decades have passed, and the Hollow Manor still stands, empty, silent, and watching. No one knows what really happened that night, but some say if you walk near the house after midnight, you can still hear the creaking floors, and a man's voice whispering, "You shouldn't have come back." Maybe the house was never haunted by ghosts. Maybe it was haunted by something far worse, the truth. Until next time, stay in the light. In the heart of the European Alps lies a hotel that time forgot. Once a paradise for the rich and famous, now it stands empty, frozen in silence. But behind its elegant halls and broken chandeliers hides a secret, one that took decades to uncover, and still haunts anyone who dares to enter. This is the story of the Hollowvale Hotel. In the quiet countryside of southern Austria lies an abandoned building, once known as Hotel Edelweiss. It stands on the edge of a dense forest, its windows shattered, its grand sign faded by time. For decades, it was a peaceful retreat for travelers seeking the Alps' beauty. But after 1993, no one checked in again. The last guests who stayed here never truly left, at least not in the way anyone expected. Locals avoid talking about the hotel. They say it brings bad luck, that strange things began happening after the disappearance of a young couple, Lucas and Marie Hauer, who checked in for a weekend stay in the spring of 1993. When police arrived days later, they found their car still parked outside, keys in the ignition, lights in the lobby still on, but no trace of the couple. The official investigation lasted for months. Forensic teams combed through every floor of the hotel, discovering signs of a sudden interruption. Unfinished meals in the dining hall, half-folded linens, and guest records abruptly ending with the Hauers' names. But there was no blood, no struggle, and no explanation. Theories ranged from elopement to foul play, yet nothing fit. By winter, the case was closed as unsolved disappearance. In 1997, 4 years after the Howers disappearance, the property was quietly purchased by a businessman named Klaus Brenner, who planned to renovate and reopen the hotel. Locals were uneasy. They warned him about the building's bad history. But Klaus was practical, a man of numbers, not ghosts. He began renovations immediately, hiring workers from nearby towns. However, within weeks, strange complaints surfaced. Workers refused to continue after sunset. They reported hearing heavy footsteps on the upper floors when no one was there, and doors slamming in locked rooms. Klaus dismissed the stories at first, blaming wind, pipes, or the workers' imagination. But as nights grew longer, his confidence began to crack. One of the construction workers, Eric Vogel, kept a small notebook documenting the renovation progress. His entries began normally, lists of repairs, expenses, and schedules. But midway through April, his tone changed. He wrote about voices whispering in the vents and tools being moved overnight. On his last entry, dated April 28th, he scribbled, "Something is in this place. It watches when we sleep." Eric never showed up for work again. His belongings were later found in his locker, and police could not trace him. Klaus claimed Eric simply ran away, but others said that on his last day, Eric looked pale, shaking, and kept staring at the upper hallway, where the Howers room once was. After Eric's disappearance, several other workers quit. By summer, renovations had stopped completely. Klaus tried to sell the property twice but failed. In interviews years later, he admitted that he began suffering from nightmares during that time. Dreams of walking the empty corridors, hearing running water from locked bathrooms, and seeing silhouettes standing behind fogged glass. In 2001, he boarded up the doors, locked the gates, and left Austria for good. The Edelweiss Hotel stood silent once more, its windows staring into the forest like blind eyes. In 2007, a group of urban explorers from Vienna decided to document the hotel for their website. Armed with cameras and flashlights, they entered through a broken window. The footage they captured was eerie. Hallways littered with old suitcases, children's shoes, and a piano that played a single note when touched, though its strings were rusted. At 3:12 a.m., the group's camera caught something unsettling. A light flickering in room 15, the same room the Howers had booked. Moments later, the footage cuts off. Two of the explorers later deleted their accounts and refused to discuss what they saw. In 2012, investigative journalist Anna Weiss began researching the Edelweiss case for a documentary on Austria's unsolved mysteries. She obtained access to police files and interviewed surviving relatives of the Howers. The most disturbing detail she found was a police note stating, "Traces of a second unknown person detected in room 15, not matching either victim." When Anna visited the hotel herself, she reported feeling watched the entire time. Her documentary was never completed. A year later, she was found dead in her apartment, officially ruled as a suicide. Yet her unfinished script ended with a chilling line. "He never left the hotel." In 2019, a YouTube channel specializing in cold cases obtained a copy of the 2007 Explorers footage. It was restored and uploaded publicly. The final 2 minutes, previously cut off, revealed a dim figure standing in the doorway of room 15. It was tall, motionless, and seemed to watch the camera before the lens cracked. Digital analysts confirmed the footage was genuine, with no signs of manipulation. Within a week, the video was taken down without explanation. The uploader's account vanished too. Today, the Edelweiss Hotel remains sealed by rusted chains. Local authorities have fenced off the area, citing safety hazards. But curiosity never fades. Every year, thrill seekers, filmmakers, and paranormal teams attempt to enter. Some succeed, some don't return. The hotel story has become part of Austrian folklore, not as a tale of ghosts, but as a reminder of how easily people can vanish, and how silence can bury the truth deeper than any grave. In 2021, Austria's Cold Case Division reopened the Edelweiss file after an anonymous package arrived at police headquarters in Graz. Inside was a deteriorated VHS tape labeled Room 15, 1993. The footage showed what appeared to be a man entering the Hauers' room around midnight on the night they vanished. His face was never visible, only a distinct limp in his left leg. Investigators cross-checked old employee records and discovered one name that fit: Jacob Steiner, the hotel's former night guard, who disappeared himself a week after the couple. His file had been lost for decades. Jacob Steiner's past revealed unsettling details. He was a former soldier discharged in 1988 for psychological instability. Neighbors described him as quiet but peculiar. He collected newspaper clippings about disappearances and had an obsession with purity and silence. Police searched his old apartment and found photographs of the hotel's corridors, taken from strange angles, as if someone had been watching from behind the walls. In one image, faintly visible in the reflection of a mirror, stood the Hauers, unaware, smiling. Investigators speculated that Jacob might have been spying on guests, possibly through hidden passages. But if that were true, where had he gone? When investigators returned to the Edelweiss Hotel with ground-penetrating radar, they discovered a sealed trapdoor beneath the reception area, one that wasn't on the original blueprints. After forcing it open, they descended into a narrow staircase leading to a hidden basement. Inside were rusted tools, a mattress, and jars containing what appeared to be preserved animal parts. But in the far corner, something else caught their attention: a faded photo album labeled Guests. Inside were dozens of Polaroids, smiling visitors, families, couples. The last picture in the book was of Lucas and Marie Hauer, dated the same day they vanished. Among the items found in the basement was a small cassette recorder. When restored, it played fragments of conversation, breathing, footsteps, and a man whispering phrases in German. Sie schlafen jetzt. Alle schlafen. They are sleeping now. Everyone is sleeping. Audio experts confirmed it was Jacob Steiner's voice, but midway through the tape, another deeper voice interrupts him, saying a single word: Bleib. Stay. The origin of that second voice could not be identified. DNA analysis conducted in 2022 revealed traces of human tissue in the basement jars. 3 different profiles were found, one matching Marie Hauer, one unidentified, and one impossible to classify due to degradation. This revelation reignited public fascination. Media outlets swarmed the area, calling it Austria's House of Silence. Locals once again sealed their doors at night, and even the town's mayor refused interviews. The truth was closer than ever, but the fear was too. A British documentarian, Daniel Reed, arrived in 2023 to film a new investigation for a streaming service. His goal was to uncover what happened to Jacob and the missing guests. Daniel spent 3 nights inside the hotel with 2 cameramen. Their footage captured anomalies, static interference, shadows moving in empty halls, and sounds of furniture being dragged. On the 3rd night, Daniel recorded his final journal entry, whispering into the microphone, "Something is below us, moving." By morning, police found the equipment, but no trace of Daniel or his crew. Weeks later, fragments of Daniel's footage surfaced on the dark web. Investigators traced the leak, but couldn't find the original source. The recovered clip shows Daniel entering the same basement door as before, but this time it wasn't sealed. As he descends, the camera flickers, and a faint figure appears in the corner. Tall, hunched, moving slowly toward him. Daniel whispers, "Who are you?" before the footage abruptly cuts to black. Analysts confirmed no digital tampering. The final audio waveform displayed one chilling word, whispered in Jacob's voice, "Stay." In 2024, Austrian authorities classified the Edelweiss site as a restricted zone, citing public safety and contamination concerns. Independent journalists accused the government of concealing information. One leaked document referred to biological traces consistent with long-term confinement. Another suggested the basement extended into an older tunnel system from World War II, possibly used for secret experiments. Officials denied all claims. Yet satellite images later revealed construction equipment near the hotel, working only at night. By early 2025, the media storm faded. Access roads were closed, and the town itself was removed from tourist maps. Former residents reported government vehicles patrolling the area. Those who spoke publicly received anonymous warnings. The Edelweiss story was once again swallowed by silence, the kind that feels intentional. But online communities still trade theories. Was Jacob a killer, a victim, or just another name erased to protect something much darker beneath the Austrian soil? Today, 32 years after the disappearance of Lucas and Marie Hauer, the Edelweiss Hotel stands in ruin, a skeleton of stone and memory. Grass has overtaken the parking lot, and ivy climbs the cracked facade. Yet locals swear that on quiet winter nights, a dim light still flickers in room 15. Whether it's a malfunctioning bulb, a trespasser, or something else entirely, no one dares to find out. Because in Edelweiss, the silence speaks louder than any scream, and those who listen too closely never stay the same. To this day, no one truly knows what happened inside the Hollowvale Hotel. Some say it was greed, others believe it was madness. But in the silence of those empty halls, one truth remains. Every wall still remembers the screams that were never heard again. In the heart of rural Australia lies a place the locals no longer speak of, a place once filled with laughter and life, until one cold morning changed everything. When Sophie Miller's body was found in the creek, the town of Hollow Creek lost its innocence forever. This is the story of the murder that still haunts Australia to this day. It was a quiet autumn morning in the small rural town of Hollow Creek, New South Wales. Mist clung to the eucalyptus trees, and the only sound breaking the silence was the distant hum of a tractor. At 6:47 a.m., a local farmer named Tom Willis made a call to the emergency line, his voice trembling. He had found what he first thought was a mannequin dumped by the creek, until he saw the blood. The body of a young woman lay partially submerged in the shallow water, her clothes torn, her face bruised, and her right hand missing. The police would later identify her as Sophie Miller, a 26-year-old nurse who had disappeared 3 nights earlier on her way home from a night shift at St. George Hospital. The discovery shook the sleepy town to its core. Hollow Creek had always been a place where doors were left unlocked and strangers waved at each other on dusty roads. But that morning, everything changed. Fear crept in like the fog that never seemed to lift. By 7:10 a.m., 2 police vehicles and an ambulance had arrived at the scene. Detective Hannah Reeves, a calm yet sharp investigator from the Sydney Major Crimes Unit, was called in. She'd seen death before, but something about Sophie's body felt different. It wasn't random. The removal of the hands suggested ritualistic behavior or an attempt to hide evidence. The area was cordoned off, and officers began combing the surrounding fields for clues. Nearby, A faint trail of blood led to a tire track, partially washed away by rain. Whoever did this knew the land well, too well. Sophie Miller had moved to Hollow Creek only 6 months earlier, escaping the noise of Sydney for a quieter life. She was loved by her patients, known for her soft voice and kindness. Her landlord, Mrs. Ellison, told police Sophie never stayed out late and kept to herself. But in her small apartment, detectives found something unsettling. A series of letters tucked in a box under her bed. Each one was signed by someone only identified as R. The handwriting was messy, desperate, and some letters contained dark, threatening undertones. You can't hide from what you did. Detective Reeves traced the letters back to Ryan Cooper, Sophie's ex-boyfriend from Sydney. He had a history of jealousy and once showed up at her workplace, uninvited. When police questioned him, Ryan appeared calm, too calm. He claimed they broke up amicably and hadn't spoken in months. His alibi placed him in Melbourne the night Sophie disappeared. However, Reeves couldn't ignore one detail. Ryan's right hand bore a long scar, as if from a recent wound. The forensic team later discovered something chilling. The cut that removed Sophie's hand was surgical, precise, not chaotic. Whoever did it knew anatomy. The hospital where Sophie worked had several surgeons and interns, but only a few had access to the same kind of medical saw used in the crime. When police checked inventory records, one surgical saw was missing. Rumors spread quickly. In cafes, at schools, and around the church, everyone whispered about the Hollow Creek killer. Parents kept their children home after dark, and shopkeepers closed early. For the first time, the town felt unsafe. Detective Reeves organized a town meeting to calm the residents. "We will find who did this," she said, her tone firm. But as she looked across the frightened faces, she knew the killer could be sitting among them. 2 days later, divers returned to the creek for another search. This time they found something. A wristwatch still ticking, engraved with the initials RC. Ryan Cooper denied owning it, claiming his had been stolen months ago. But forensic analysis revealed traces of Sophie's blood embedded in the metal band. Ryan's alibi was starting to crumble. When detectives searched Ryan's apartment, they found a hidden box behind a false wall panel. Inside were photos of Sophie, newspaper clippings about her disappearance, and one surgical glove, with a faint trace of blood on the fingertips. Ryan was arrested, but during interrogation he said something chilling. "You think I killed her?" I didn't even finish what he started. That word, he, changed everything. Detective Reeves dug deeper into Sophie's past and found that during her internship at St. George Hospital, she reported a doctor for misconduct, Dr. Richard Kane, known among staff as the Shadow Man for his eerie quietness and late-night shifts. He had disappeared shortly after being suspended 2 years ago. No one had seen him since. And then came the twist. Richard Kane's initials, RC, matched the engraving on the watch. Reeves requested the hospital's old security archives. Most footage was gone, but one damaged tape showed Sophie walking to her car late at night and a tall man in a surgical coat following her from a distance. Digital enhancement revealed the man's face. Dr. Richard Kane. He wasn't dead. He wasn't missing. He had been hiding. And now it seemed he had returned. Detective Reeves felt a cold wave run down her spine as she stared at the enhanced image. Richard Kane's pale, expressionless face glowed under the dim light of the hospital's parking lot. The timestamp showed the footage was taken 3 days before Sophie's disappearance, the same night she was last seen alive. Reeves immediately issued a national alert. If Kane was alive, he had likely assumed a new identity. A check on medical licenses revealed that someone named Dr. Richard Cole had recently registered to work in a private clinic in Wollongong, just 2 hours from Hollow Creek. The photo on the license was an older, bearded version of Richard Kane. As officers prepared to move, Reeves couldn't shake off the sense that Kane had always been a step ahead. His actions weren't random. They were calculated, methodical. This wasn't revenge born of emotion. It was a ritual, a message. And Sophie, the nurse who once exposed him, had been his unfinished business. The manhunt for Richard Kane became one of the largest in Australian history. Over 100 officers were deployed across New South Wales. Police drones scanned forests, highways, and abandoned buildings near Wollongong. Meanwhile, Detective Reeves visited the clinic where Dr. Cole had worked. The staff were visibly shaken. The receptionist recalled his strange behavior. He often arrived long before dawn and sometimes stayed until after midnight, muttering to himself in the dark. In his office drawer, they found a jar filled with small bones, later identified as animal remains used for anatomical practice. But the most disturbing find was a patient file labeled Sophie M. Inside were photocopies of her hospital ID, address, and shift schedule. Reeves realized that Kane had been planning the murder for months, perhaps years, waiting for the right moment. Reeves brought in a criminal profiler from Canberra, Dr. Ethan Blake, to analyze Kane's behavior. His assessment was chilling. Kane exhibits traits of a high-functioning psychopath, intelligent, charming, emotionally detached. He doesn't kill for pleasure. He kills to assert control. Dr. Blake also noted a disturbing pattern. Every patient who had filed a complaint against Kane during his career had later suffered accidents, car crashes, home fires, disappearances. None were ever officially connected to him. Reeves realized Sophie had been the only one who survived long enough to expose him, and for that, she had sealed her fate. 3 weeks into the investigation, a tip led police to an old farm on the outskirts of Hollow Creek, abandoned since 1987. Neighbors reported seeing lights flicker there at night. When officers entered, they found what looked like a makeshift medical lab. Rusted tables, blood-stained aprons, jars of formaldehyde filled with preserved organs. In one corner stood a mirror covered in black cloth. Reeves lifted it. Behind the glass was a carved inscription. "She watched me. Now I'm watching you." A sense of dread filled the room. Kane had been there, recently. That night, a patrol car spotted a figure matching Kane's description near a gas station outside town. When the officer approached, the man fled into the forest. A massive search began. Helicopters, dogs, lights slicing through the mist. Reeves joined the chase on foot, her flashlight trembling as she ran through the dense bushland. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement near an old water tank. When she aimed her light, she caught a glimpse of Kane's face, pale and expressionless, before he vanished into the darkness. The forest fell silent, except for the faint echo of his voice whispering through the trees. "You can't bury the truth." Despite weeks of search efforts, Richard Kane was never found. Media frenzy slowly faded. The public moved on. But Reeves couldn't. She continued to study every piece of evidence, replaying the footage over and over. Then one night, she received an anonymous envelope at her home. Inside was a photograph of her, taken from outside her window, with a handwritten note. "Now you're part of the story." 5 years passed. Hollow Creek tried to heal, but scars remained. The case became a cautionary tale taught in police academies. Reeves had been promoted, though she still carried the shadow of that night. Then, a construction crew unearthed a sealed metal box near the old creek bed. Inside were newspaper clippings, surgical tools, and several human bones, including a right hand. DNA confirmed it was Sophie Miller's missing hand. The killer had left his final signature. Despite new evidence, Richard Kane was still officially listed as missing. Some believed he had died in the forest. Others claim he was still out there, watching. Reeves knew better. The precision, the messages, the patterns, all pointed to a mind that couldn't stop. In her final report, she wrote, "Richard Kane is not gone. He's waiting for recognition, for the story to end his way." Years later, a journalist produced a documentary about the Hollow Creek case. During editing, the team noticed something chilling. In one of the drone shots taken near the creek, a tall man was seen standing at the tree line, watching the crew. When they zoomed in, the face was blurry, but the outline of a surgical mask was visible. The footage was removed from the final cut, and the journalist later quit the project without explanation. Today, the creek flows quietly again, surrounded by rustling trees and the whispers of wind. But locals still say that on cold nights, you can hear faint footsteps and the echo of a man humming, the same tune heard on Sophie's final voicemail. Detective Reeves retired a year later, moving far north to escape the memories. Yet, every anniversary of Sophie's death, she receives an unmarked letter. Inside, a single line, written in the same handwriting as before. "You never found me." And at the bottom, the initials, RC. More than 2 decades have passed since the Hollow Creek murder. The town rebuilt its roads, its homes, and its silence. But every autumn morning, when the fog returns to the creek, people say they can still hear Sophie's footsteps, walking home, just like she tried to that night. In the heart of Maine's endless forests lies a story that was never meant to be told. A town that lost its peace, victims who vanished without a trace, and a killer who became part of the woods themselves. For over 40 years, no one has ever found him, but the forest still whispers his name. This is the story of the Shadow in the Pines. Nestled deep within the forests of northern Maine lies the quiet town of Blackwood County, a place of misty mornings, pine trees stretching endlessly, and a population that barely reaches 2,000. Life here moves slowly, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. That was until the fall of 1983, when the town's peace was shattered forever. On October 12th, a local hunter discovered the body of a young woman near a stream just outside the town. Her name was Laura Finch, a 26-year-old school teacher who had gone missing 2 days earlier. The cause of death was unclear. There were no gunshot wounds, no signs of struggle, only a faint mark around her neck, as if she had been silenced by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The town descended into panic. Police from neighboring counties joined the investigation, but answers were scarce. 2 weeks later, another body was found. This time, a truck driver named Earl Hopkins, killed in almost the same way. The media started calling him the Shadow in the Pines. The killer had no pattern, no motive, and no mercy. Sheriff Daniel Rowe had served Blackwood County for nearly 20 years. He had seen car crashes, drunken fights, and the occasional robbery, but never murder. It wasn't supposed to happen here, he later said in an interview. The crime scenes were meticulously clean. Whoever the killer was, he left nothing behind. No fingerprints, no footprints, not even tire marks. For weeks, investigators searched for a connection between Laura Finch and Earl Hopkins. They found none. They didn't work in the same place, didn't know each other, and had no mutual friends. Yet both bodies were discovered within a 5-mile radius, near dense pine forests. The sheriff suspected the killer might know the woods intimately, perhaps a local hunter or lumber worker. On November 5th, the body of a teenage boy, Tommy Griggs, was discovered by a group of campers. His death mirrored the previous two. No signs of struggle, just the same faint bruise around the neck. Panic turned to terror. Schools closed early, and residents locked their doors at sundown. For the first time, Blackwood County felt hunted. A witness came forward, an elderly gas station owner named Paul Marin. He claimed to have seen a rusty blue pickup truck parked near the forest the night Laura disappeared. Police tracked down several similar vehicles, but each lead went cold. The truck became a ghost story whispered in diners and bars. The blue truck in the pines. By December, the FBI joined the investigation, classifying the killings as serial murders. Profilers described the suspect as a white male, mid-30s, intelligent, organized, and possibly a local. They believed he stalked his victims silently, striking when they were alone. Yet, without physical evidence, the profile was only speculation. A shadow chasing a shadow. During a search in early 1984, officers discovered several makeshift camps deep within the forest, each abandoned, each containing cigarette butts and old cans. Forensics revealed traces of human DNA, but the technology of the time couldn't identify it. One chilling detail stood out. Each camp was within sight of where a victim's body had been found. A chilling breakthrough came when a hiker found a small cassette tape in a metal box near one of the camps. The tape contained faint breathing, footsteps on leaves, and a low humming, as if someone had been recording the forest at night. The sound expert who analyzed it said, "It felt like the forest was being watched." Dozens of suspects were questioned. Hunters, drifters, and even a reclusive Vietnam veteran living in the woods. All were interrogated, all released. One man confessed, only to be proven mentally unstable. The killer, it seemed, enjoyed watching the police chase ghosts. As winter blanketed Blackwood in snow, the killings abruptly stopped. Months passed with no new victims. People began to hope it was over, but the sheriff knew better. "He's not done," Rowe told a local reporter. "He's waiting." In April 1985, a hiker named Sarah Lowell disappeared while exploring the forest trail. Her camera was found near a tree, film still inside. When developed, the last photo showed her smiling. And in the background, barely visible through the trees, was a man wearing a dark jacket, standing perfectly still. That photo spread like wildfire. News vans lined the main road. Reporters flooded the town. Blackwood County, once peaceful, became synonymous with fear. Businesses closed and families moved away. The killer's presence lingered, unseen, yet everywhere. In June 1986, the local newspaper received an anonymous letter. It read, "You won't find me in the Pines. I am the Pines." Handwriting experts couldn't match it to anyone. The sheriff kept it hidden from the public for years. When asked why, he said, "Because he wanted attention, and I refused to give it." From 1986 to 1992, nothing. No bodies, no sightings, no letters. The town healed slowly, though fear lingered like smoke. Children grew up hearing stories of the shadow in the pines, a legend that felt all too real. In 2003, with advancements in forensic technology, old evidence from the camps was retested. The DNA matched none of the local suspects, but it revealed something startling. The killer had O-negative blood, shared by less than 7% of the US population. A small clue, but a new breath of life into a dead case. In 2011, a forest ranger reported finding a rusted blue pickup deep in the woods, half buried by time. Inside were scraps of rope, cigarette butts, and an old cassette. identical to the one found decades earlier. The tape was blank, almost as if he knew someone would find it. Some believe the shadow was a drifter who died in the woods. Others claim he still lives there, watching anyone who dares to wander off the path. Psychologists suggest he killed for control, not rage or pleasure, but dominance. He didn't hunt for sport, one profiler said. He hunted for silence. Today, more than 40 years later, the case of the shadow in the pines remains unsolved. His legend still haunts Blackwood County, whispered around campfires, feared by travelers, studied by criminologists. The forest stands quiet, the pines unmoving. But locals say, when the wind blows just right, you can still hear faint breathing in the dark. The forest keeps its secrets. Maybe he's gone, or maybe he's still out there, watching from the shadows, waiting for the next sound of footsteps among the pines. In 1978, deep in the quiet town of Fall River, Massachusetts, a psychiatric hospital shut its doors overnight. No reason, no warning. For decades it was forgotten, until a team of investigators broke the seal. What they found beneath the hospital was never meant to be seen. This is the story the government tried to erase. On a hill just outside Louisville, Kentucky, stands one of America's most infamous buildings, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Once built to treat tuberculosis patients in the early 1900s, it quickly became a place of pain, despair, and eventually, death. Between 1910 and 1961, more than 6,000 people are said to have died within its cold concrete walls. Nurses, doctors, and patients all fell victim to the disease that had no cure at the time. The hospital was closed decades ago, but even today, locals refuse to walk near it after sunset. They say the screams of the dead still echo through the empty corridors. Documentary filmmaker Adam Cole had heard the stories for years. Ghost hunters, paranormal researchers, even local police officers, all claimed to have seen things inside Waverly Hills they couldn't explain. When Adam got permission to film inside the sanatorium for 3 nights, he thought it would be the perfect material for his next documentary. But from the moment he stepped inside, he realized that Waverly Hills was nothing like the abandoned places he had explored before. It wasn't just empty, it was alive with something unseen. The first thing he noticed was the smell, a faint mix of disinfectant and old metal, like a hospital that never truly died. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing long hallways lined with rusted beds and broken wheelchairs. The silence was thick, almost physical, and the air was so cold it made his breath visible. His cameraman joked nervously, "Feels like they just left yesterday." Adam didn't reply. Deep down, he felt as if the hospital itself was breathing, slowly, deeply, waiting. They set up their equipment in the old operating room, cameras, motion sensors, and digital recorders. The walls were still stained with time and something darker. Around midnight, Adam started recording his narration, describing the tragic history of the place. But as he spoke, one of the motion sensors lit up in the corner. There was no one there. The team froze. Then came a faint whisper through the recorder, a woman's voice, trembling, almost pleading, "Help me." The night shift always carried a strange silence, but that night felt heavier, like the air itself was pressing against Sarah's chest. The hospital, once full of life, was now eerily still. Only the sound of her footsteps echoed through the halls, followed by the faint hum of old fluorescent lights. She tried to focus on her work, checking patient records, adjusting IV drips, and refilling medication trays. But she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching her. The security cameras had been down for 2 days, and the janitor refused to clean the old East Wing anymore. When she asked him why earlier that evening, he simply muttered, "You'll understand soon," and left before sunset. At around 1:48 a.m., while checking the oxygen tanks near Ward C, Sarah heard a soft knock coming from behind the locked door of the abandoned room. She froze. That ward had been sealed years ago, after a fire incident that killed 3 patients and a nurse. Slowly, she leaned closer, listening. The knock came again, 3 slow taps, like someone trying to get attention. Her heart pounded. She whispered, "Is anyone there?" and placed her ear against the door. What she heard next made her step back in shock. It was a faint child's voice whispering, "It hurts. It hurts so much." She stumbled backward, nearly dropping her flashlight. The door creaked softly, even though it was locked with rusted chains. Suddenly, the hospital intercom system crackled to life, an old radio static echoing through every corridor. Through the noise, she heard an unfamiliar voice, faint but clear. "Room 209, he's still there." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Room 209 was inside Ward C, the same place where the fire had started. She ran back to the nurse's station and checked the old patient records. The last person registered in room 209 was a boy named Ethan Clark, age 9, pronounced dead in 1984. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the yellowed pages. The file included a photograph, a small boy with short hair and a cast on his left arm. His eyes looked lifeless, almost too real for an old photo. Just as she set the file down, every light in the corridor went out at once. Total darkness. Her flashlight flickered, then died. And in that darkness, she heard the same voice whisper right behind her ear. "Why did you leave me there?" Sarah screamed and turned around, but no one was there. Just the faint reflection of a small figure in the window glass, standing inside the locked Ward C. Her ID badge fell from her neck and slid across the floor, stopping at the door of the sealed ward. But Sarah's story didn't end that night. What she found the next morning would reveal something far darker than a haunting. The morning after Sarah's breakdown, the hospital administration launched an internal review. They wanted to understand how a trained nurse fainted during her shift in a supposedly empty section of the hospital. But when the maintenance team checked the security office, they discovered something no one could explain. The CCTV system, which had been inactive for 2 days, suddenly began recording again at exactly 1:46 a.m., the same time Sarah reported hearing the knocking sound. When the footage was reviewed, it revealed shadows moving behind the sealed doors of Ward C. There were no lights on, no power supply connected, and no access to that corridor. The video lasted for exactly 17 minutes. At first, the hallway appeared empty, except for the faint flicker of light. Then, a figure appeared, small, pale, and barely visible. It walked toward the camera, stopping only a few feet away. The timestamp on the footage froze for a few seconds, and then the camera went completely dark. When the image returned, the figure was gone, but written on the wall in black was a single sentence: "Why did you leave me?" The maintenance worker who reviewed the footage quit his job the same day and refused to speak about what he saw. Later that week, one of the hospital's IT technicians found a forgotten hard drive in the basement archive. It contained older recordings from the 1980s, black and white footage from the same Ward C. In one of the tapes dated August 12, 1984, a young boy appeared lying on a hospital bed, staring directly at the camera. There was no medical staff in the room, no movement except the boy's eyes. At the 3-minute mark, the screen distorted violently, and the boy began to scream, silently. No audio, just a trembling image of his mouth open wide as if in pain. The label on the tape read, "Ethan Clark, room 209. When the police were notified, they confiscated the tapes and the CCTV footage for investigation. A statement from the local sheriff's office confirmed the material was under review for authenticity. However, a leak from one of the officers suggested something more disturbing, that the voice captured on the hospital's intercom system that night wasn't just static. When the audio was enhanced, a faint whisper could be heard repeating the words, "I never left." That same phrase appeared again in a maintenance report from 1992, written by a worker who later went missing. Every trace of those tapes has since disappeared, officially listed as archived evidence unavailable. But the deeper the investigators dug, the more they realized Ward C was hiding something far worse than a haunting. 2 weeks after the incident, a full investigation was launched under the supervision of Detective Michael Grant, a veteran officer known for his work on unexplained cases. The hospital temporarily shut down Ward C and sealed off the basement, where the old recordings had been found. Michael arrived early one morning with a forensic team, armed with UV lights, electromagnetic sensors, and body cameras. Their goal was to document everything scientifically, to prove once and for all whether the stories of the haunted ward were real or a psychological illusion. But from the moment they stepped inside, every piece of equipment began to malfunction. Batteries drained instantly, recorders glitched, and cold spots appeared randomly in the hallway. At 2:07 p.m., one of the forensic technicians, Lisa Raymond, reported hearing faint tapping sounds from inside room 209. Michael ordered the team to record the temperature and electromagnetic readings near the door. The readings spiked massively. The EMF sensors hit their maximum limit, similar to the electromagnetic pulse of high-voltage power lines. Then, from the intercom system, long disconnected, came a single sentence whispered in a child's voice. "It's still burning." The team froze in silence. Room 209 was the same room that caught fire in 1984, killing Ethan Clark. That night, Detective Michael reviewed all the footage from their body cameras. To his surprise, certain moments had vanished. Entire sections of the recordings were replaced with static or black screens, especially around the basement stairwell. In one corrupted file, a frame appeared for less than half a second. A figure standing behind Michael, small, motionless, with eyes glowing faintly white. No one on the team remembered seeing it in real time. Forensic analysts tried to enhance the image, but every attempt ended with the file self-deleting. The IT department later confirmed the footage had been overwritten by an unknown process. The final report from that day described multiple, unexplainable phenomena, including sudden temperature drops, spontaneous interference in electronic devices, and faint audio patterns resembling human whispers. But what caught Michael's attention most was a page added to the hospital's old blueprints. It showed a hidden access door beneath Ward C, leading to an underground section labeled Psychiatric Isolation Unit, Closed, 1979. No one in the hospital's current staff had ever heard of such a section. Michael decided the next step was to open it. What they would find beneath Ward C was never meant to be uncovered. 3 days later, the hospital's management reluctantly granted permission to unseal the hidden basement. Only Detective Michael, Lisa Raymond, and 2 maintenance workers were allowed to enter. The door, concealed behind layers of concrete, took nearly 5 hours to break through. As the final piece of the wall collapsed, a heavy wave of cold air rushed out, air that hadn't circulated for decades. Beyond it lay a narrow staircase spiraling down into total darkness. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, slow and rhythmic, as if the building itself were alive. Michael's flashlight flickered, revealing traces of rusted medical equipment and faded symbols etched into the walls. At the bottom of the staircase, they discovered a long corridor lined with patient rooms. Each door bore a number, but instead of names, they carried hand-carved words like Subject 11, No Light, and Keep Silent. Inside the first room, dusty journals lay scattered across the floor. Lisa picked one up and read aloud. Experiment halted. Subject showed severe psychotic reaction to auditory exposure. Voices persist even in sedation. Michael flipped through the remaining pages and realized they were part of a psychiatric research project from the late 1970s, led by Dr. Harold Brenner, a name that had been erased from all hospital records. Every entry mentioned the voice in the vents. Further inside, they found a rusted metal door marked Restricted, Level B. When they forced it open, the stench of decay was overwhelming. The room beyond contained half-burnt documents, broken restraints, and a single hospital bed bolted to the floor. On the far wall, someone had written a sentence in charcoal. They said the walls could listen. Lisa began to cry quietly. Michael noticed scratch marks leading from the bed to the ventilation shaft, deep grooves carved by human nails. Then, from inside the vent came the faint sound of breathing. The forensic instruments reacted again. Temperatures plummeted, and electromagnetic readings surged uncontrollably. Michael pointed his flashlight into the vent, and for a fraction of a second, a pale hand appeared before vanishing back into the dark. He shouted for the team to retreat, but before they could move, the door behind them slammed shut. The lights went out completely. Only the sound of that slow, rhythmic breathing remained, echoing through the corridor. Later, when emergency crews reopened the basement, they found Michael and Lisa unconscious near the stairs. The footage from their body cameras ended abruptly, with a single distorted whisper. "Don't open it again." The truth had finally begun to surface, but what they awoke beneath the hospital was far from over. 2 weeks after the basement incident, both Detective Michael and Lisa Raymond were placed under medical observation at St. Mary's Hospital in Boston. They had no memory of what happened after the lights went out. Michael suffered from constant migraines and occasional auditory hallucinations, whispers that seemed to echo the same phrase over and over again. "Don't open it again." Lisa's condition was worse. Her eyes reacted violently to light, and she claimed she could see shapes moving through walls at night. A psychiatric evaluation suggested severe trauma, but the doctors couldn't explain the sudden electromagnetic burns found on both of their hands. The case gained national attention after a local news outlet leaked fragments of the body cam footage to the internet. Viewers claimed to hear faint cries and a woman's voice whispering names in the background. The video was later taken down by federal authorities, citing public safety concerns. Soon, online communities began investigating the hospital's past, uncovering old staff rosters and patient records dating back to 1974. Among them were reports of illegal experiments conducted by Dr. Harold Brenner, who was supposedly declared dead in 1981 after a fire destroyed his private laboratory. But now, his name appeared again in files hidden deep within the hospital archives. One of the retired nurses, Margaret Haynes, agreed to speak publicly for the first time. She revealed that Dr. Brenner was testing a controversial method of auditory conditioning, using sound frequencies to alter human perception. Several patients reportedly died during the trials, but the deaths were listed as suicides or cardiac failures. When shown a photo of the hidden basement, Margaret trembled and whispered, "That's where he kept them, the ones who could still hear." Her interview was broadcast only once before the network claimed technical issues and pulled the segment off air. The footage has never been re-released. Weeks later, Michael's condition deteriorated. He was found wandering near the old hospital grounds in the middle of the night, barefoot, and repeating a phrase over and over, "She's still down there." Lisa, who had been discharged by then, refused to speak to reporters and moved to an undisclosed location. In a follow-up investigation by the Massachusetts Department of Health, the basement was sealed permanently under federal order. However, the report mentioned something strange. The night before it was sealed, motion sensors inside the building detected movement coming from below ground. No one was sent to investigate. The world thought the nightmare had ended, but the whispers never stopped. In December 2022, the Massachusetts State Police released a declassified portion of their investigation into the abandoned St. Augustine Psychiatric Hospital. The document, labeled Case File Number 0473B, contained 186 pages of reports, interviews, and forensic data. For the first time, it confirmed the existence of Dr. Harold Brenner's secret auditory experiments and the underground facility known as Level B. According to the files, Brenner's team conducted sound-based neurological conditioning on more than 30 patients without government approval. The project was funded privately through a now-defunct medical foundation. However, the files did not explain what became of the remaining patients or the true purpose behind the research. Among the appendices was a disturbing discovery: audio tapes recovered from the basement during the 2021 reopening. Tape number 7, captured a male voice repeating the words, The Sound Remembers. Another, labeled Number 9C, contained nearly 5 minutes of silence, followed by a faint whisper resembling a female voice saying, "He never left." Forensic experts ruled out tampering or background interference. The recordings were authentic and originated from the sealed room. The analysis also revealed irregular frequency patterns, sound waves not matching any known mechanical or human source. In other words, the audio carried traces of something alive. The final report concluded that, while no physical threat remained, psychological and electromagnetic anomalies were unresolved. The property was transferred to federal custody and declared permanently restricted under Title 12 of the Public Health Safety Act. All access points were sealed with concrete, and the surrounding land was fenced off. Local authorities issued a public advisory warning citizens not to approach within 500 meters of the facility. Despite this, urban explorers have continued to sneak in over the years. Several videos appeared on YouTube showing flashes of light in the upper windows and faint humming sounds in the distance before being swiftly removed. In March 2023, an anonymous Reddit user uploaded a short clip allegedly recorded near the site. It showed a faint red glow emanating from beneath the ground, and a single line of text appeared on screen. Level B is awake. Within 24 hours, the account was deleted and the post disappeared. To this day, no one knows who uploaded it, or if it was even human. The official investigation has been closed, but locals still report hearing strange humming sounds near the sealed hospital during the night. As one resident said during an interview, "The building is quiet, but the air around it still whispers." What was buried beneath St. Augustine was never meant to be found, yet it listens still. They said it was just an old farm, forgotten, isolated, and ordinary. But when the ground began to shake and the mist returned after 50 years, one man realized something beneath that soil was never meant to wake up. This isn't just a story about a farmer. It's a story about what happens when the earth remembers. Stay till the end, because what Thomas discovered will change everything you thought you knew about life beneath our feet. It was the kind of morning that felt almost too peaceful. A golden mist rolled across the fields, and the sound of roosters echoed softly through the valley. Thomas Hale wiped the sweat from his forehead, leaned on his shovel, and smiled at his growing cornfield. For 20 years, this land had been his life, quiet, simple, and honest. His wife, Mary, had passed away 5 years ago, and since then, the farm had been his only companion. He woke with the sunrise, worked until dusk, and rarely left the property. In the village, people said he was a man who spoke more to the soil than to humans, and he liked it that way. That morning, however, something felt different. The air was heavy, and the birds were quieter than usual. As he approached his barn to feed the animals, he noticed the door slightly open, even though he was sure he had locked it the night before. He frowned, stepped closer, and pushed the door wide open. Inside, everything looked normal. The hay bales, the tools, the cows quietly chewing in their stalls. Then his eyes caught something strange on the wooden wall. A black mark burned deep into the wood, shaped like a spiral with 4 jagged lines crossing through it. It didn't look like a child's prank. It looked deliberate, almost like a brand. He reached out to touch it. The wood was still warm. Thomas took a step back. A faint smell of metal filled the air. Not smoke, but something chemical. He looked around, uneasy. No signs of intrusion, no footprints on the dusty floor. Yet, something, or someone, had been there. He decided not to tell anyone. The villagers were quick to gossip, and he hated attention. Still, the mark haunted his thoughts all day as he plowed the fields. When the sun began to set, he saw something shining under one of the corn rows. He dug around the spot with his hands and pulled out a small metal capsule, the size of a thumb, covered in mud. There were strange letters engraved on it, not English, not any language he recognized. At one end, a small latch was sealed with wax. He cleaned it with a cloth, turned it over, and stared at it in silence. Then, a faint sound, like a click, came from inside the capsule. Thomas froze. He looked around the empty field, heart racing. Nothing. Only the sound of wind brushing through the corn. He put the capsule in his pocket and hurried back home. That night, as he sat by the fireplace, he placed it on the table in front of him. The flame from the fire reflected on its surface. He thought of opening it. Curiosity burned inside him, but something deep down told him not to. He decided to hide it inside a wooden box near his bed. Then he blew out the lamp and tried to sleep. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a faint echo, a whisper that seemed to come from the fields. Don't let them find it. The next morning came quietly, yet Thomas couldn't shake the unease from the night before. He barely touched his breakfast, staring instead at the window where the fog still lingered across the fields. Something was wrong with the air itself. Thick, heavy, and unnatural. He stepped outside, the cold dew soaking his boots. The animals were restless. Even the cows wouldn't eat. As he reached for the chicken feed, a sudden metallic sound echoed from the direction of the old mailbox near the road. Thomas froze for a second, then began walking toward it slowly. The box door was swinging gently in the wind, creaking. Inside there was only one thing, a small folded letter sealed with black wax. He hesitated before touching it, but curiosity won. He broke the seal and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was elegant, almost official, and the message was short. Mr. Hale, what you found does not belong to you. Stay silent, destroy it, and forget what you saw. We are watching. Thomas stared at the words until his hands began to tremble. He looked around. The road was empty, but he felt eyes on him. He turned back to the house, locking every door and window he could. Hours passed. The sky turned gray. He couldn't stop thinking, who are they? He opened the wooden box beside his bed, taking out the metal capsule again. It seemed ordinary now, cold and harmless, but he knew better. When night fell, he placed the capsule on the table and stared at it under the lamp's yellow light. He thought of destroying it, maybe burying it deep in the woods. But something inside him said no. He needed to know the truth. Then, a sudden thud came from outside, a heavy sound, like a car door closing. Thomas's breath caught. He turned off the lamp and moved toward the window. Far down the dirt road, he saw faint headlights, then 3 dark silhouettes moving toward his farm. He ducked down, heart pounding, watching as the figures stopped near his barn. They were men, tall, wearing black coats and wide hats. One of them carried a lantern. Another held what looked like a metal detector. They whispered among themselves, scanning the ground. Thomas backed away from the window and grabbed his old hunting rifle from the corner. He hadn't fired it in years, but tonight, fear outweighed reason. The footsteps grew closer. He could hear the crunch of gravel under their boots. Then, silence. He held his breath. For nearly a full minute, nothing moved. Finally, the sound of engines roared to life, and headlights drifted away into the fog. They were gone. The morning after the strange men appeared, Thomas could barely think straight. He hadn't slept at all. Every sound outside the house made him flinch. The creak of wood, the call of crows, even the wind brushing against the windows. Something inside him had changed. The farm no longer felt safe. He stepped outside with his rifle slung across his shoulder. The footprints near the barn were still fresh in the damp soil. Large, heavy boot marks, unlike any worker or villager he'd ever seen. And the burned spiral symbol on the barn wall was gone. Not faded, gone. The wood looked freshly sanded, smooth and pale, as if someone had cut away the surface during the night. Thomas knelt down and touched the spot where the mark had been. The wood was still cold. Whoever came last night knew what they were doing. He looked around carefully. The silence felt wrong. Even the animals refused to come near the barn. The cows stayed in the far field, and the chickens hid in the coop. It was as if the place itself had absorbed fear. Thomas took a deep breath. "All right," he muttered to himself. "If you want to play games, I'll play too." He went back into the house and fetched an old camera that belonged to his father. He loaded a fresh roll of film, then returned to the barn and began taking pictures. The ground, the footprints, even the door hinges. He didn't know who would believe him, but he needed proof. By noon, he decided to visit the village. He hadn't been there in weeks. Maybe someone had seen the cars or strangers passing through. He put on his coat, locked the house, and started walking down the dirt road. The village was quiet, smaller than he remembered. Children played near the bakery, and the smell of fresh bread drifted through the air. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Thomas stopped at the general store, run by a man named Harris. "Morning, Tom," Harris greeted, polishing a glass jar. "Haven't seen you in a while." Thomas nodded. "Been busy. Listen, you notice any outsiders around? Black cars, maybe?" "Last night near my place." Harris frowned. "Can't say I have. Why, something happened?" Thomas hesitated. He didn't want to sound crazy. "Just thought I saw something strange." "Probably nothing." Harris chuckled. "You've been spending too much time alone, my friend. The mind plays tricks." Thomas forced a smile, but deep down he knew this wasn't imagination. As he left the store, an old woman sitting by the fountain called to him. "Mr. Hale," she said in a trembling voice, "you should be careful. The ones who come at night, they don't like being seen." He stopped cold. "What do you mean?" She looked around nervously before whispering, "They came for my brother once. Same mark on his barn. The next day both him and the barn were gone. Nothing left but smoke." Thomas's throat tightened. "When was this?" "Years ago," she said. "People forget, but I remember." He thanked her quietly and hurried back toward his farm. As the sun began to set, a heavy fog rolled in again, thick. When he stepped onto the porch, he froze. His front door was slightly open. Thomas raised his rifle and pushed the door slowly. Inside, everything was silent. Too silent. The lamp he'd left on the table was shattered, the pieces scattered across the floor. And on the wall above the fireplace, another mark, burned into the wood. But this time, it wasn't a spiral. It was a single word, scorched deep and uneven. Return. Thomas felt his chest tighten. He backed away, gripping the rifle with trembling hands. Whoever they were, they'd been inside his home. He ran to the bedroom. The wooden box, the one where he'd hidden the capsule, was open, empty. He stood there for a long moment, unable to move. Then, from somewhere outside, he heard the faint echo of an engine starting and fading into the fog. Thomas stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the empty box. The capsule was gone, the only proof he had that something unnatural was happening. He rushed to the window, but the fog outside was too thick to see through. Only shadows moved within it, shifting like ghosts. Whoever took the capsule had been inside his house while he was gone. Thomas's heart pounded as he thought of the word burned into his wall. Return. What did they want him to return? The capsule or something else? He grabbed the old phone beside the window and called Harris at the store. No answer. He tried the sheriff's office, but the line was dead. Outside, the wind howled, and the fog pressed close against the glass like a living thing. Then came a faint knock. 3 slow taps on the front door. Thomas froze in place. The knock came again, louder this time. He gripped his rifle tightly and approached the door. "Who's there?" he called, his voice shaking. Only the wind replied. He took a deep breath and opened the door. No one stood there, only fog, swirling and rolling like smoke. Then he saw something, a small metal key lying on the porch floor. It wasn't the capsule. He bent down, picked it up, and noticed a tiny paper tag tied to it with a single word written in red ink. Barn. His stomach tightened. The barn again. Thomas took his lantern and walked into the fog. Every step grew heavier as the mist swallowed his light. Whispers echoed around him, low and distant. When he reached the barn, he unlocked the door with the key. The sound of the metal echoed through the silence. Inside, the smell of damp wood filled the air. In the center of the floor lay a shape covered by a black tarp. He lifted it slowly and froze. The capsule was there, open this time, glowing with a pale blue light. Beside it was a small recorder, playing by itself. A distorted voice whispered, "You were warned. The earth remembers." The light faded, and the barn fell silent again, until Thomas heard a breath behind him. Human. Real. He turned sharply, but the barn was empty. Thomas didn't sleep that night. He sat in the corner of his kitchen, rifle on his knees, waiting for the sun to rise. When morning came, the fog had lifted, but the air felt heavy, as if the land itself was holding its breath. He stepped outside, scanning the fields. Everything looked normal, except for one thing: the scarecrow. It was facing the wrong direction. He walked slowly toward it, boots crunching over the dry soil. The closer he got, the stranger it seemed. The scarecrow's straw hat was gone, and its burlap face had been replaced with a mask. A white mask, blank and expressionless. Pinned to its chest was a small note: "We watch what you guard." Thomas tore the note off, heart hammering. He looked around. The field stretched empty in every direction. But deep down he knew he wasn't alone. He ran back to the barn. The capsule was gone again. Only the tarp and the dirt pattern beneath it remained, as if something heavy had been dragged out during the night. Panic and anger boiled inside him. He shouted into the empty air, "What do you want from me?" His voice echoed through the valley. Then, in the distance, a flock of crows rose suddenly into the air, cawing wildly. That evening, Thomas sat by the barn with a lantern, determined to catch whoever was behind this. The fields were silent. No insects, no birds, only the soft hum of the lantern's flame. Hours passed. Then, out in the field, something moved. A figure, tall, thin, walking slowly between the rows of corn. Thomas raised his rifle and called out, "Stop right there!" The figure froze. For a moment, silence. Then it turned its head toward him. Two small red lights blinked where its eyes should be. Thomas fired. The shot echoed, but when he reached the spot, nothing. Just trampled corn and a faint smell of smoke. He stood trembling, realizing this was no ordinary man. Thomas didn't leave the barn for 2 days. He barely ate, barely slept. The image of the red eyes haunted him every time he closed his own. On the third morning, he decided he couldn't stay trapped anymore. He needed to understand what was happening to his land. Armed with a shovel and his rifle, he stepped into the field where he'd seen the figure. The corn was crushed in a wide circle, as though something massive had landed there. He began to dig near the center. The soil was softer than usual, almost loose. After a few minutes, his shovel hit something hard: metal. He cleared the dirt away and uncovered a circular hatch, half buried beneath the earth. A small symbol was carved into it, 3 lines forming a triangle, the same mark that had been on the capsule. His pulse quickened. This was connected. He tried to pull the hatch open, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked tight. As he wiped sweat from his forehead, he noticed something: small vents along the rim, releasing faint wisps of steam. The ground beneath him trembled slightly. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind him, "Step away from it, Thomas." He spun around. It was Sheriff Dalton, his old friend, but his face was pale, and his eyes cold. Thomas lowered his shovel slowly. "You know what this is, don't you?" he said. Dalton didn't answer. Instead, he raised his revolver. "You shouldn't have dug here." Thomas's grip tightened on the rifle. "Tell me what's under there." Dalton's voice was steady but grim. "Things buried for a reason. Things we were told never to wake." Before Thomas could reply, the hatch hissed. A blast of air rushed out, carrying a strange metallic smell. Dalton fired his gun, not at Thomas, but at the hatch. The bullet sparked against the metal. The ground shook violently. Both men stumbled backward as the earth split open slightly, releasing a deep, mechanical hum. The earth groaned beneath their feet. Thomas and Dalton scrambled to their feet as the metal hatch began to glow faintly with blue light, the same color as the capsule. The hum grew louder, deeper, until it felt like the entire field was vibrating. Dalton shouted over the noise, "You don't understand, Thomas. It's not just a machine, it's alive." Thomas stared at him in disbelief. "Alive? What do you mean, alive?" Dalton's eyes were filled with panic. "It's been here longer than we have. The government buried it decades ago, said it was a failed experiment. But the land, it feeds off it." The ground split open wider, and a blinding flash erupted from the hatch. Dalton stumbled backwards, shielding his face. Thomas dropped to his knees, covering his ears as a sound like 1,000 voices filled the air. Then everything went silent. The fog that had haunted the farm began to rise again, swirling around them in a spiral. In its center, the capsule appeared, floating, glowing brighter than ever. A voice echoed inside Thomas's mind. The Guardian has awakened. The debt must be paid. Dalton fired his gun wildly into the fog. Each shot vanished into nothing. Then a beam of blue light struck him, and he fell, silent, motionless. The fog swallowed his body. Thomas crawled toward the hatch, shouting, "What debt? What do you want from me?" The voice replied, calm, cold, ancient. "You disturbed the balance. You woke what sleeps beneath the soil." The light surrounded him now, lifting him slowly off the ground. He tried to resist, screaming, but his voice vanished into the wind. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the light dimmed, and the farm fell silent again. When the townsfolk came days later, they found the fields burned in perfect circles. The barn was gone. Thomas and Dalton were never found. But every night since, when the fog returns, the locals swear they can hear a man's voice echoing through the cornfields, whispering, "The earth remembers." In the quiet French countryside, there's a school no one dares to enter after dark. Teachers vanished, students whispered about strange voices, and the building itself seems alive. Tonight, we uncover the true story of St. Bernard School, one of France's most haunted and mysterious places. Stay with me. What you're about to hear is not fiction. In September 2019, the prestigious St. Véran boarding school, located on the outskirts of Lyon, France, welcomed its new class of students. The institution had been operating for over a century, known for its excellence, strict discipline, and its imposing stone architecture surrounded by dense woods. For most families, it represented opportunity, a future for their children. But behind the heavy iron gates, something else lingered, a presence that many would later describe as the silence that never slept. Teachers began noticing strange incidents almost immediately. Classroom doors opening on their own, lights flickering at exact times each night, and faint whispers in the hallways when no one was there. The headmistress, Madame Lefebvre, dismissed the rumors, blaming stress and teenage imagination. But her written notes, found later by investigators, told a different story. She had written, "There is something here with us. I feel it watching, waiting." At the time, no one outside the school knew what was happening within those walls. But by the end of that semester, St. Véran would become one of the most disturbing, unsolved cases in modern French history. The first official incident was recorded on October 12, 2019, barely a month after classes began. A janitor named Pierre Laurent, who had worked at St. Véran for more than 20 years, reported hearing footsteps echoing through the West Wing long after midnight. That part of the school was supposed to be locked. No students or staff were allowed there after 8 p.m. Pierre followed the sound with his flashlight. The corridor stretched long and narrow, the old wooden floors creaking beneath each careful step. As he approached classroom 3B, the sound stopped. The door was slightly open, even though he remembered locking it earlier. Inside, the desks were arranged neatly, except for one. A single chair was turned toward the blackboard, and written across the board in faint chalk were 3 words: "We are awake." The next morning, the writing was gone. No one admitted to doing it. Pierre resigned a week later without giving notice, and when police tried to contact him months later for questioning, they found he had vanished completely, leaving behind his house, car, and even his dog. By November, rumors had spread across the dormitories. Students whispered about strange dreams, identical ones shared by different people on the same night. They described a dark figure standing at the foot of their beds, whispering in a language none could understand. 2 girls from dorm room 7 reported seeing handprints appear on their window from the outside, 4 floors above the ground. When staff checked the glass, they found long streaks as if someone had dragged their fingers down the pane. One student, Amélie Durand, began recording everything on her phone. In one video, filmed at 2:43 a.m., The sound of footsteps can be heard, followed by the faint cry of a girl saying, "Il est là," he's here. Police later authenticated the video. The voice did not belong to anyone in the dormitory. The administration tried to control the panic by forbidding discussions about ghost stories. But the fear had already rooted itself deep, and the school's atmosphere changed. Teachers said even during daylight, the halls felt darker. After a series of complaints from parents, the Ministry of Education sent an inspector, Julien Moreau, to evaluate the situation. He spent 3 nights in the school, staying in a guest room adjacent to the West Wing. In his report, which was later leaked to the media, he wrote, "There is something deeply wrong in this building. The walls absorb sound and the air feels heavier. At exactly 3:11 a.m., I heard a child laughing in the corridor. When I opened the door, nothing. Only cold air and the smell of wet soil." Julien left the school the next morning and refused to return. A week later, he was found dead in his apartment in Lyon, an apparent suicide. But investigators noted something strange. On his wall, written in charcoal, were the same 3 words from the classroom incident: "We are awake." On December 2nd, 2019, a storm hit Lyon, cutting power to the entire area. That night, 4 students, Amélie Durand, Luc Martin, Sophie Reynaud, and Nina Fontaine, went missing from their dorm rooms. Their beds were found neatly made, their belongings untouched, but every single one of their phones had stopped recording at 3:11 a.m. Security cameras captured only static during that time window. When power was restored the next morning, the footage showed something chilling. For exactly 3 seconds before the blackout, a shadow moved across the hallway, tall, distorted, and walking toward dorm 4B. Despite massive search operations, no trace of the students was ever found. The school closed indefinitely in early 2020. To this day, locals avoid the building. At night, they say, lights still flicker in the West Wing. By early February, the school's atmosphere had grown heavy, almost suffocating. Strange messages began appearing on the whiteboards of empty classrooms, messages that seemed to be written by an invisible hand. Teachers would erase them before leaving, only to find them rewritten the next morning, always in the same elegant cursive. Phrases like, "We never left," "They still watch from the attic," and "The bell tolls for those who remember," appeared in different rooms at the same exact time every night. The janitor, an old man named Jacques, swore he saw chalk moving on its own. The administration checked the security footage repeatedly, but every night at 3:12 a.m., all the cameras flickered to static, the exact minute the previous janitor had been found dead in the basement years earlier. Rumors spread like wildfire among the students. Some claimed to hear the faint echo of laughter in the empty gymnasium. Children's laughter, though no one was there. Others swore they saw shadows moving swiftly behind the lockers, as if someone, or something, was still roaming the halls after dark. 2 senior students decided to stay after hours and record what they could. Around 3 a.m., their phones captured a strange noise. A woman's whisper, trembling and broken. "Don't open the door, please." The next morning, when they replayed the audio, the whisper had changed. It wasn't soft anymore. It was a scream so loud that the file corrupted halfway through. Both students dropped out a week later, refusing to explain why. Madame Leroux, the French literature teacher, began to lose sleep. Every morning, she found her classroom rearranged. Chairs turned toward the walls, books opened to pages about death and guilt. Her students' notebooks were spread across her desk, pages torn, red ink smeared over certain words. Forgive, return, betrayal. One night, she decided to confront whatever was happening. She stayed late, sitting alone in the dimly lit classroom. At precisely 3:12, the lights began to flicker. She heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, heavy. When she peeked outside, she saw a figure wearing an old St. Véran student uniform. The figure stood perfectly still, head tilted, eyes nothing but dark, hollow pits. By March, panic had spread through the staff. The headmaster requested an official investigation. Specialists installed motion detectors, night vision cameras, and temperature sensors throughout the school. For 3 nights, nothing unusual occurred, until the 4th. At 3:12 a.m., all 16 classrooms recorded a sudden drop in temperature to 6 degrees Celsius. Motion sensors activated in unoccupied rooms. Audio recorders picked up the dragging of metal chains and the faint cry of a child. When the footage was reviewed, every camera captured the same frame. Corridor lights flickering violently, then freezing on a pale, translucent hand pressing firmly against the lens, as if trying to get out. The recordings were sent to experts in Paris for digital analysis. Officials claimed it was simply technical interference, a convenient explanation. But that same week, one of the investigators, a man named Duval, was found unconscious in his car outside the school. His fingernails were cracked and bloody, as if he had tried to claw at something. Witnesses said he was mumbling in his sleep, repeating the same phrase over and over. "They're still inside. They never left." When he awoke, he refused to speak of it, resigned from his position, and vanished from public view. The investigation was quietly closed. Yet for those who worked within St. Véran, it was clear. Something ancient and vengeful had awakened within those walls. The days that followed were marked by tension and silence. Teachers avoided staying after hours, and students began skipping classes. The hallways, once filled with laughter and chatter, became eerily quiet. The janitor, Jacques, was the only one who dared to remain in the building at night. He claimed he heard desks scraping across floors and faint music echoing from the music room, an old melody no one recognized. One night he followed the sound, recording it on his phone. The next morning, his phone was found shattered in the hallway. The recording was corrupted, except for a few seconds of audio. A child's voice singing softly in French. Les murs se souviennent. The walls remember. A week later, the headmaster called an emergency meeting. Half the staff didn't show up. Those who did sat pale-faced, trembling, as Madame Leroux revealed something she had found. An old photograph hidden behind the classroom chalkboard. It showed a group of children standing in front of the school, dated 1963. Behind them, barely visible in the shadowed window, was a woman's face, the same one Madame Leroux claimed she saw in the hallway. The room went silent. Someone whispered, "That's her, the teacher who disappeared." The photo was sent for verification, but when returned, the face in the window was gone. Soon after, strange electrical issues began plaguing the building. Lights flickered even during the day, and the fire alarms would sound at exactly 3:12 a.m. every night. Electricians were brought in, but their equipment failed inside the West Wing. One technician described feeling a pressure like being underwater. Another refused to return after hearing what sounded like children chanting behind the walls. The school board blamed old wiring, but no one could explain why new bulbs shattered the moment they were installed near the attic stairs. As fear grew, a journalist named Camille Bernard arrived from Lyon, determined to uncover the truth behind the haunting. She interviewed former teachers and locals, piecing together a dark history. The St. Véran school had once been an orphanage during the 1940s, when France was still reeling from the war. Dozens of children had perished in a mysterious fire that consumed the West Wing, the same part of the building where the phenomena were now strongest. Official reports called it an accident, but Camille found testimonies suggesting otherwise. The doors had been locked from the outside. Camille decided to stay overnight inside the school to document the activity herself. Armed with a camera, a recorder, and a flashlight, she entered just before midnight. The building felt alive. Floors creaked under her feet, and a faint humming filled the air. She began speaking into her recorder, narrating every sound, every movement. At 3:10 a.m., she reported a sudden cold breeze and the faint smell of smoke. At 3:12, her recording ended abruptly with a loud crash. The next morning, police found her camera near the stairwell. The last frame captured her flashlight rolling across the floor, and a child's hand reaching toward it. Camille Bernard's disappearance became national news within days. French authorities searched the school and surrounding woods for nearly a week, but found nothing except her broken recorder and the remnants of melted wax on the floor, as if candles had been burning all night. The last entry in her notebook, written hastily in uneven handwriting, read, "The children are not gone. They remember the fire. They want to be heard." Locals began leaving flowers at the school gates, calling her a hero for uncovering what others refused to face. Yet the police quietly sealed the building once again, declaring it unsafe for entry. At night, neighbors claimed they still saw a single light flickering in the upper window, the one that belonged to the music room where Camille had vanished. Months passed, and the story faded from the headlines, but not from memory. A new caretaker, a retired soldier named Henri Delcourt, was hired to monitor the abandoned property. He kept a detailed log of his duties, maintenance checks, patrol times, and any unusual occurrences. His notes started off mundane but grew darker each week. He wrote about footsteps echoing from the third floor, the faint laughter of children in the vents, and once, the unmistakable sound of a piano playing from the locked music room. Henri recorded his findings for the board, but one entry stood out. "I saw them tonight. Small figures in the courtyard. They stopped when I turned the flashlight on, and then they smiled." One evening, Henri set up his own camera in the hallway leading to the West Wing, determined to capture whatever haunted the building. Around 3 a.m., the motion sensor triggered. The footage, later recovered by authorities, showed the corridor dimly lit, the air shimmering as if disturbed by heat. Then, a shape emerged from the shadows. Not a single figure, but several small silhouettes, moving slowly in unison. They appeared to be children, their outlines flickering like smoke. One of them turned toward the camera. Its face was pale, with black hollows where the eyes should have been. The recording ended as the lens cracked from an unseen force. Henri's body was never found. After Henri's disappearance, the French Ministry of Education permanently closed Saint-Véran. Steel barriers were installed, and access was forbidden. Yet that didn't stop thrill seekers and amateur ghost hunters from sneaking in. Videos began appearing online, shaky footage showing classrooms covered in dust, desks still marked with children's names. In one viral clip, a group of explorers found a chalkboard that had written itself while they filmed. The words, in neat cursive, read, "You shouldn't be here." The video ended with their camera falling to the floor and the sound of running footsteps echoing through the halls. Authorities later confirmed the group was never identified, and their channel disappeared days later. Today, Saint-Véran stands silent, its windows boarded, its halls filled with dust and whispers. Locals claim that on cold winter nights, when fog blankets the small French town, you can still hear the faint echo of a school bell ringing. At exactly 3:12 a.m. Those brave enough to walk near the gates say the air grows colder, and if you listen closely, you might hear the sound of children reciting lessons, in perfect harmony. No one dares to enter anymore, yet every year, without fail, a candle mysteriously appears on the steps of the West Wing. No one knows who places it there, or why it always burns until dawn. Nearly a decade after Saint-Véran was sealed, a Paris-based documentary team called Echo Noir received special permission from the Ministry of Culture to film inside the ruins. Their goal was to uncover the truth behind the school's dark legend, and perhaps restore the forgotten story of the children who perished in the mysterious fire of 1958. The team consisted of 5 members: director Lucien Moreau, cinematographer Isabelle Charon, sound engineer Marc Lefebvre, historian Dr. Thérèse Roux, and journalist Antoine Lemaire. They arrived in late November, when the sky over the countryside was heavy with clouds and the air smelled faintly of snow. From the moment they entered the gates, their cameras began recording every second. None of them realized that what they were documenting was not a story, but a warning. Inside, the building was eerily preserved. The air was stale, filled with the faint smell of old wood and soot. The team moved cautiously through the corridors, documenting each room. Isabelle's camera captured hallways lined with decayed lockers and faded murals of smiling children holding hands, images that felt wrong against the silence that surrounded them. Dr. Roux stopped frequently, taking notes about the school's architecture and commenting on its unusual design. "It's as if the West Wing was rebuilt multiple times," she murmured. "The walls don't align with the original blueprints." That night, while reviewing footage, Lucian noticed something in one of the shots, a reflection in a cracked classroom window. Behind them, barely visible, stood a figure wearing what looked like a 1950s school uniform. None of the crew had seen anyone else in the building. The second day brought heavier tension. Mark, the sound engineer, began complaining about interference on his equipment, whispering static, distant hums, and at one point what sounded unmistakably like children singing. He replayed the audio several times for the group. The voices were faint but melodic, repeating an old French nursery rhyme. "Frère Jacques, dormez-vous." The recording continued even after they stopped filming, and when Mark unplugged the microphone, the singing didn't stop. That night, the team slept in the van outside the school, too unnerved to stay inside. Isabel woke up at 3:12 a.m. to see the school's bell tower faintly glowing. Not with light, but with fire, flickering like the reflection of a past event replaying itself through time. She screamed, waking the others, but when they looked, the glow was gone. On the third day, they entered the West Wing, the section most associated with the hauntings. The air there was colder, and their breath misted as if they were outdoors. They found the remains of burned desks, melted crayons fused into the floor, and on one wall, dozens of small handprints scorched into the plaster. Dr. Roux whispered, trembling, "These weren't made by fire. They're pressed in." Antoine set up an interview shot in front of the music room door. While he spoke about the legend of Camille Bernard, Isabel noticed the doorknob turning slowly behind him. The footage later showed that it turned exactly 3 times, stopped, and then the faint sound of a piano chord echoed through the hall. When they opened the door moments later, the room was empty, except for a single child's shoe, perfectly clean, resting in the middle of the floor. By the 4th night, fear had replaced curiosity. The team decided to pack up and leave the next morning. Lucian, however, insisted on filming one last sequence, a walk through the main hallway at midnight to serve as the film's closing shot. He went in alone, camera rolling, narrating quietly, "If there are voices here, let them speak now." What the recovered footage showed afterwards stunned investigators. As Lucian walked, the camera caught shadows moving parallel to him on the walls, shadows of children walking hand in hand. Then came the echo of a school bell. The lights of his camera flickered violently, and in the final frame, a dozen figures stood at the end of the hallway, facing him. Their mouths opened in silence, and the video ended abruptly. Lucian's body was found the next morning near the gates, eyes wide open, camera clutched tightly in his frozen hands. The SD card inside was empty. 3 months after the tragedy, police investigators entered Saint-Véran to collect any remaining evidence. They found the team's equipment scattered, all lights broken, batteries drained as if they had been running continuously for days. The authorities dismissed the case as a tragic accident, a filmmaker's obsession gone wrong. But the story didn't end there. When the police analysts examined the recovered camera casing, they found traces of human fingerprints, small, child-sized, pressed into the plastic, as if melted by heat. Even stranger was what happened to Captain Rousseau, the lead investigator. Within weeks of reviewing the footage, he began reporting nightmares. His wife claimed he would wake at exactly 3:12 a.m., drenched in sweat, whispering, "They were never buried." A year later, Rousseau was found dead in his study, surrounded by charred documents and the melted remains of his laptop. In 2024, a new documentary team attempted to revisit the case for a streaming platform. They obtained access to archived police material, photos, floor plans, audio logs. But one sealed file drew particular attention. Inside was a series of letters written by the former headmistress, Madame Lefebvre, weeks before her disappearance. Her final note read, "They told me the foundation was built on the remains of the orphanage fire. I hear them still. They never stopped singing." This revelation shocked the new investigators. Saint-Véran, it turned out, wasn't built from scratch in 1912 as the records claimed. It had been constructed directly atop the ruins of a burned orphanage, whose victims were never properly buried. The West Wing, the most haunted part, stood precisely over what used to be the children's dormitory. The crew decided to conduct one controlled overnight recording inside the building with infrared cameras and motion sensors. They set up equipment across the West Wing and sealed the entrances. At 2:47 a.m., the motion detector in Classroom 7 activated. On the feed, faint shapes began to form. Dozens of translucent figures, no taller than a child, gathering in a circle. One of them turned toward the camera, its face smooth, featureless, yet somehow aware. The system's temperature reading dropped from 12 degrees Celsius to -5 degrees Celsius in seconds. Then, the singing began again. Frère Jacques, faint, layered with whispers. The lead producer's voice trembled through the walkie-talkie. "Shut it down. Shut it down now." But before the team could power off the system, every camera lens cracked simultaneously, and the building went dark. The next morning, the crew emerged unharmed but deeply shaken. They refused to discuss what had happened, and all recordings appeared corrupted. However, one camera's audio track remained intact. When restored, the background noise revealed something unexpected. Beneath the singing and static, there was a voice, older, female, whispering in French. "Nous ne voulions pas mourir ici." We did not want to die here. Experts later confirmed the voice matched archived recordings of Madame Lefebvre herself, the headmistress who vanished in 1961. The implication was horrifying. Her spirit, bound with the children she once failed to save, still roamed the halls of Saint Véran, forever trapped between guilt and the cries of the lost. Today, the Saint Véran school remains sealed, fenced off by the French Ministry of Heritage. No official tours are allowed, yet locals claim to still hear the bell ringing some nights, always at 3:12 a.m. Every few years, thrill seekers break into film, but none stay until dawn. Some leave their cameras behind, footage frozen mid-frame as if time itself stopped inside. In 2025, a motion sensor installed by urban explorers triggered unexpectedly, recording only one thing: the sound of small footsteps and a child's voice saying, "Are you awake, Frère Jacques?" To this day, no one has been able to explain what truly happened in those halls. The ministry insists the building is empty, but if you stand outside its gates at night, when the wind passes through the trees, you can still hear it, the faint echo of children singing in the dark. The doors of St. Bernard remain locked, but some nights, locals say they still hear children laughing inside. Maybe the school never truly closed. Don't forget to subscribe, because next week, we uncover another place where the shadows never sleep.